So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our next speaker. He's called Az, and he's actually got a snazzy video for you, so I'm not going to say anything else, and I'll let Az introduce himself.
My name is Azadvir Singh, and I'm the founder of Wootz. And we're done. Thanks. Right. My name is Azadvir Singh, and I'm the founder of Wootz, a lifestyle brand that celebrates identity, heritage, and the martial way of life. I want to say a big thank you to the NextDayBetter team for having me. It's the perfect venue for me to talk about my story. Now, it's funny, I actually got to speak to someone, I don't know where she's gone now, over lunch, but she actually asked, well, what is Wootz? I thought it was that term, you know, when you're in excitement, woo, woo, and you added a Z on the end. And it's a good idea. So Wootz was the original iron used to create the weapons back in Punjab, which is in India. So the way we all know of the samurai and the samurai sword, a Wootz blade was the finest, most precious blade you could own. It was let's call it the Bentley of metal. And what made it so unique was that of all other metals, most swords are reflective, you can see yourself in them, whereas Wootz, through the carbon process, when it would be hammered and folded, it would create these amazing water-like patterns, almost like if you pour oil on water and you see those wonderful swirls. So as you can imagine, from kings to warriors, they'd all want to own a Wootz blade. So that was my inspiration behind it. And when I was creating the brand, it was like, okay, the original name was actually going to be Natural Born Warriors, macho, woo, And I went to trademark it, and actually, it turned out someone had already taken it. And my friends who had been collecting antique weapons for years, they kept on talking about this, Wootz, Wootz, Wootz. And I was like, I kind of like the sound of that. And from there, I figured, well, every brand needs a tagline, right? Nike has Just Do It, etc., etc. And I was like, well, what could I use to play with that? What could be an identifier? And I figured, well, Wootz is about history. It's about being proud of who you are and where you come from. And I figured, know thy Wootz. So that's where the name and what Wootz is. But everything didn't start off so easy. And the actual origin came out of a place of frustration. And I was at work, we're talking end of 2011, and I was there. And for those who work at Apple, you understand the upstairs area where you put away parts. And I was there, and I was putting away another brown box of parts, and I'd already put away 100 of them, and I was like, starting to go mental here. And I just thought to myself, this can't be me for the rest of my life. This can't be what I'm destined to do. Surely there's more to my story than effectively putting parts away. And that led me to want to find something to which I could identify with and I could share with the world. And at that time, I had recently, I guess you could call it, come into my faith. As someone who had been, I'm a Sikh. I can't say I'm born a Sikh, so I don't think you can be born of faith. But I decided to learn more about it. And as I did, I became very intrigued, and I took it one step further, and I guess the closest way to call it is I became baptized, a practicing Sikh known as a Khalsa. So as I learned more about that, I said to myself, whoa, this is a cool story. I was someone who grew up on comic books, and back when I could move without breaking my back, I used to break dance, and I'd be interested in, they call it dressing fresh to death. It was a way of looking, the way you carry yourself. Yeah, you know that. So I thought, well, okay, cool. Art, timeless. It's been around since the beginning, since the caveman paintings. Clothing, we all need it, we all wear it. How could I take something I'm so proud of and so excited about, and how could I bring that to a wider audience? Not just my community, not just for Sikhs, but how could I encourage other people to be inspired by their own cultures, by their own identity, by their own heritage? And I thought, well, okay, well, let me start with mine. Let me start with this concept of taking art, taking clothing, and creating designs representative of my history and where I come from. And it was a way for me to express that in a way that other people could relate to as well. So something I'm wearing today, the clothes here I'm wearing today, these are Wootz clothing. And there's nothing about this that's, just Sikh-centric. This here says live by the sword, as my unfortunate sword just dropped from there. But this is my sword, so I live true to that. My jacket, it represents real identity. It represents a symbolism of who I am. And so that's where I started. And everything is originated from a place of true identity. So I'm trying to find things within my culture that I could use in a way that I could highlight them and be proud of them and make other people be like, well, hey, why does that dude walk around with a sword? Should I ask or should I call the police? So I had to find a way to break that down. And for me, it was through design. It was through captivating pictures where people would maybe question and ask, well, hey, what does that fist mean? It says, long live the revolution, but he has beads in his hands. What does that connection entail? And for me, it was creating this sense of my people have endured centuries of battle, but at the same time, we're enveloped in developing our spirituality. So there, whilst the revolution may live on, do not forget to maintain your spirituality. Or the lion, just next to the t-shirt on the left that says revolution. Now, most people will look at that and be like, okay, that firstly is a crazy pattern. But actually, on closer inspection, a lot of the intricate designs in that were inspired by beautiful pattern work I would see on swords and shields. And it inspired me to be like, okay, how can I bring that design out? So that led to the creation. And through this, I've been blessed. We're 3 years in now, and it's allowed me to travel the world. I've been to Canada, I've been to America, and I've been able to share the Wootz message with a whole variety of people. And it's been amazing to hear people ask me about Wootz. And again, the first place of conversation usually is, you have a sword. Let's talk. And it's like, okay. And I break it down. And from there, it's allowed me to spread this message worldwide to where I am now in front of all you guys in London, and we're having this conversation. Now, when we're talking of identity and heritage, as I was growing up, before I call it pre-TB, pre-turban beard, and I was discovering myself. I was trying to fit in. The first, and if you come from an ethnic minority, usually the hardest place to start is saying your name and trying to get other people to be able to say it. So it's like, hey, my name is Azadvir. Your name is my name is Azadvir. My name's Az. Oh, hey, Az, nice to meet you. So that was a starting point for me, and I realized, well, that was happening because I wasn't really confident in who I was and where I came from. So in order to fit in, and some of the speakers really made a great point of that earlier, we would find different identities to fit into the given situation we were in. And for me, I realized the starting place for my journey would be researching further into where I come from and my history. And I started with a name. So in the Punjabi culture, our names have meaning. So for me, my name splits into two parts, Azad and then Veer. So Azad means freedom, Azadi, to have freedom. And Veer is a term for bravery. Now, if you're a little kid and someone explains that to you, I'm free and brave, suddenly you go from like this to be like... So it was very empowering for me, and it was a starting point where I started to change my conversation with people, and I would introduce myself as Azadvir. I would take pride in that this is my name. And it's okay. If you don't get it, I'll walk you through it. We'll start at the first part and we'll get to the second. But I no longer just gave them a nickname for the sake of making it easier, because it took away from who I was. As a part of that, it allowed me to really appreciate where I came from and who I was. And as I researched more about the warriors and their journeys and about my Sikh identity, I became inspired by those feats. Growing up as a kid, I was inspired by Superman, Batman, the X-Men. X-Men especially. X-Men because their motto as mutants was, people fear us because we are different. And I could really identify with that because growing in environments as an ethnic minority, you always do feel a little different to those around you, to the majority population that will be around you. And so I really identified with those. But then when I started to learn about the great Sikh warriors and the way they sacrificed themselves and the great feats they went to, I was like, whoa, I've got real superheroes I can look at. There are real people I can be inspired by. So it encouraged me to want to learn more and identify more with those people. But not so much because of what they done, but why they done it. What drove an individual to be cut piece by piece in the defense of another faith? What drove mothers to have their children flung into the air to land on spikes, to have them cut piece by piece and put as garlands around their neck? Why would any sane person do that? What was their conviction? And that gave me a great sense of empowerment to want to understand better what it was we stood for, what it meant to be a Khalsa, what is that identity, what strength can I draw from that place? And this took me on a wonderful journey, and it made me realize that we all have something amazing to be proud of. We all belong. We all have a story. We all have something so unique about us. And especially in London, in this diaspora, where there's such a diversity, to know who you are is such a great place of conversation. I mean, we've had food from other cultures. There's such a mix of people here. It's such a wonderful diversity that we can engage in this conversation. But in order to do so, you need to have a sense of self. You need to know where you come from. Now, I'm no stranger to racism. After the 7/11 bombings, I remember sitting on the tube and people would get up and either move carriage or move further down. I've been called bin Laden. I've been called terrorist. Now, if I wasn't confident in who I was, your gut reaction would be to get aggressive, to get angry. You'd want to swear. You'd say, who are you to say this to me? You'd want to do that. But the other way to look at it is, if you are in tune with who you are, if you are confident with who you are, then you understand those are just mere words. They're nothing. And if you live with that strength, I tell you what, when those people said that to me, I looked at them and I smiled. Because the other option was I get my sword out and that's going to go in a whole different direction. So it's easier to engage in a way that they can be like, okay, maybe I had a misconception. I remember going to America, the land of the free, and I got to customs and I'm there and they want to go through the pictures on my camera. You know, as you do to everyone who passes those borders. And having a conversation, just speaking, how long are you here for? Who are you with? What are your intentions here? Intentions? I was hoping to get a tan and further my brown skin. And it got to the point where they almost wanted to search my hard drive. And I'm thinking, this is something out of like 24. Is this real? Am I going through this? Now my reaction again could have been, what are you doing? What? Because of the way I look, you choose to define me. Instead, I engaged in that conversation. I said, look, feel free. I had nothing to hide. And even if it was just that sense of confidence, that sense of self that made me say to myself, it's okay. Don't get riled up. Don't allow, again, as previous speakers mentioned, the world wants to define us into places. They want to say, you're tall, you're small, you're fat, you're thin, you're colored, you're not. You come from this background, you like that music. Everyone wants to create that definition. But the only true definition is how each and every one of you see yourselves. That's all that matters. Nothing else holds any weight. Because at the end of the day, you have to look at yourself in the mirror. And if you aren't happy with yourself, and if you aren't telling yourself, I am proud of who I am, don't expect the world to look at you and have that sense of pride. Instead, they'll be like, well, I'm going to judge that person. And it's kind of like I'm hoping everybody's watched like a David Attenborough documentary, and you see the prey, and you see the hunter, and as soon as the hunter seeks that weakness, it goes into the prey. Human beings, we're not that different. Just go to any high school playground and you'll see bullying. It's the best example. You can brave it all you want. As soon as you show a sign of weakness, it's like the bullies feed off it. Suddenly they're in. They can see they've got a kick out of it and they'll keep going. Whereas if you hold your own, if you maintain your identity, it allows you to be strong. And through the brand, I was able to have a voice. It allows me to continue to have a voice, which is why I'm here today. And you don't always plan everything in these conversations, but just recently, on the anniversary of 9/11, a gentleman who looks like me was in New York. He's driving along, and someone starts horning at him. And the gentleman who looks like me thinks, okay, maybe it's a frustrated driver. Then he starts shouting out, terrorist, Osama, terrorist. And he thinks, right, okay, I'm just going to pull to the side, let this angry person go. Now that individual decides to park next to the guy, get out of his car, and he gave him a beating whilst the person who looked like me was sitting there. Now he was hospitalized. And this isn't a rare occurrence, this is a regular occurrence for anyone who does look like me. But again, I could have gone towards the route of frustration, or I could use that as an opportunity to highlight an issue we still face, an issue that affects us, which is we fear that which is different. Instead of trying to understand it, we put it into a category and box and say, you're like this, therefore I can't like you. Without perhaps ever having met that person, without perhaps ever spoken to that person, we define them into that box. But instead, I chose to highlight that issue and let people know, well, this is what's happening to us, and don't let it get you down. Just understand, this is a part of life. It's unfortunate that that happened to him, but don't cower away from your identity as a result of it. We need to stand stronger, in fact. It should encourage us to keep our heads held high, because to cower from that would then encourage that behavior as if we're guilty of something. And I can tell you now, I am absolutely unapologetic for the way I look, and I will not change that for anyone. And thank you. Now, in terms of giving back, this environment here for me is a prime example. NextDayBetter. What a great way, what a great place we're in right now. That we're all here, and every single one of you here, I'm proud of you, because whether Samira twisted your arm or you're here of your own being, you chose to make a commitment today. You're here because you are interested in how we can engage and make the next day better. And I was able to do that through Wootz by, first and foremost, athletes. So athletes within the Punjabi community are not very well represented, and it's hard to find avenues for them to shine. So one of the first places I started was finding athletes who are doing amazing things and finding a way to support them, be it monetary, be it through clothing. And we have two people here, both from the UK, Hardeep Rai and Mandeep Shergill, both young kids. He is 19 and he is 20, mixed martial artist and powerlifter. Mandeep actually came first in the UK Powerlifting Championships, and Hardeep has his second mixed martial arts fights coming this year. And it was a way to give them a platform and encourage them. Again, it was a way of giving back to my community, because at the moment, my concentration lies in empowering my community to feel like, hey, be what you want to be, do what you want to do. If you have a passion in life, follow it. There are avenues, there are people who will support what you do. So that was one way of doing it. The second way was, I'm an avid listener to podcasts. I love listening to podcasts, and I'm a fan of the Joe Rogan Experience. Some people here may have heard of it. Joe, ironically, Joe has listened to the Joe Rogan Experience. And it was interesting. I was like, this is a great idea. He's getting these fascinating people to come on, to comics, to biomedical scientists, to hunters, just a variety of people. And it was just fascinating to listen to. And I thought, well, hey, that's a good idea. Why is there nothing like that in our community? And I come from the school of thought that you can do two things in life. You can moan about things, and that's it. Or you can moan about something and say, right, let me fill that void. What can I do then to actually do something about that? So I started a podcast, the Know Thy Wootz podcast. And from there, I would invite people who are fashion stylists, rappers, artists, graffiti artists, activists, all within the Sikh and Punjabi community. And I gave them a platform to encourage our community to be inspired and say, oh, okay, I don't have to go down the doctor, lawyer, etc. route. There are different avenues. There are unique avenues that I can follow. I didn't know this was possible. So it allowed me to create a different environment. And through that, I'm inspired by them, because hearing their stories, I've gotten to meet new people. Being here, I've got to meet you guys. It's like, wow, this is a new environment. And that only happens when we encourage ourselves to step out of our comfort zones and actually try new places. Now, moving forward, I'm still working on building my story. I wouldn't say it's complete yet. I'm still finding myself. But one thing I can say is I'm very confident in who I am as a person and my identity. And it's really important to stress that absolutely be proud of who you are, but never use that pride as a way of judging someone else. Never turn that pride into something where you look upon another person or community and say, well, they don't have this, this, and this, therefore I don't like them, or I will shun them. That's not what being proud of who you are is about. Being proud of who you are comes from just being unapologetic of the way you are. Your behaviors, your attitudes, the way you interact with people. It's about having that sense of self. And I want to share something with you, which is profoundly obvious, but I still want to share it. Is there anyone here who's ever collected something that's a limited edition or a one-off? Yeah, wow, you're super excited. Okay, so, well, each and every single one of us is a one-off. Each and every single one of you sitting here, there never has been, there isn't, and there never will be another person like you. You are the ultimate limited edition. There can be no one like you. So why try so hard to be like someone else? When you all have your own story to tell, why try so hard to tell someone else's? It's great to have role models. It's great to have mentors. But instead of wanting to be like them, learn from them and apply that to yourself. How can you become the ultimate limited story? And my brother Jordan talks about this a lot. He talks about chess. And chess has a whole different number of pieces. And he always says to me, chess is the ultimate unity through diversity. And I love that. And I think Next Day Better is a perfect representation of that. Now, again, life comes at you in many formats and it throws curveballs at you. And on Wednesday evening, a close cousin brother of mine had a heart attack and passed away. Now, he was only 34. And in Punjabi, when we say someone has passed on, we say, "O pure ho gaye." Now, pura means complete. And I found that really interesting. And that really struck a chord with me because it's like saying their life is now complete. And it made me sit back because, I'm still feeling the effects of it. And it just made me think. And I asked the question to you, if you were to go tomorrow, can you look at your life and say, it was complete? Or can you say, I was working towards living the most satisfying version of my life? Because that is one reminder of death, that is one beauty of death. It reminds you of the beauty of life. And with that, I give you all a challenge. And it's a simple challenge, he says. And this is one thing. All of you here today, whether it's right now, whether it's at the end of the day, whether it's when you're conversing, think of one thing that you as an individual can do to improve not only the quality of your life, but of the quality of those around you. What can you do to take pride in something that belongs to your heritage and identity? What can you do that you're proud of that you want to share with the world? Discover something new. I look forward to hearing your stories. Thank you. Thanks.
Does anybody have any questions?
This isn't a question, but I must say, I used to work with Az. I'm Jordan, and he's one of the most chill people you would ever meet. He's an inspiration, and I'm honored that we can have you on stage. So.
Thank you, man.
What do you think about, I can't think of a better example, but Che Guevara's an icon that's been used, taken, and spread around the world. What do you feel about icons which stood for something originally, which have been culturally misappropriated, and people assuming an identity which perhaps they might not fully understand where it came from? What do you think about fashion icons like that?
Well, I think you nailed it. That's exactly the point. They may not understand. And I think we all have a responsibility to find out and actually learn what it's about, because I know a big topic right now is cultural appropriation and people adopting things that some people feel offended by because it's not part of their culture or their origin. Now, I don't necessarily feel that way because otherwise my brand would only be for my people, and that doesn't make sense. For me, I'm trying to create something that many people can aspire to. But definitely when you have figureheads who have had iconic moments, those exist within the Sikh community too. I think it stems from being able to learn and find out more, because unfortunately Wikipedia has pretty much destroyed all forms of history, because there's just anyone could go on there and interpret it and write their own version of it, and as a result you don't really get to the crux of some of these historic figures. And I know it's happened, as a people who are still reeling from the effects of colonization. I come from a colonized country. I'm fully aware of the level of manipulation of my history that has happened in order to suppress my people. So in terms of that, it comes down to really taking the time to find out the origin story and not just read one version of it. And it's funny because when I think you just mentioned that point, as a kid, and it makes a lot more sense now, wow, I'm having a revelation here. I used to love comic books that had an origin story. I was fascinated by how did Wolverine become the Wolverine? How did the X-Men become, how did Superman get his, I was really intrigued, and now it makes sense because I always had this desire to want to understand where people came from and why they'd done the things they did, and kind of apply that to who I am today. So yeah, the long answer and short answer is, do your research. Yeah. Hey.
Sorry, it came a bit too late, but just maybe a general question. Globalization has two sides. One side is very beneficial and it makes us exposed to other civilizations or other nations, other identities, and the other side is kind of unifying a majority look, or unifying all the cultures to look the same.
Mm.
Where do you think fashion falls in this two sides? Do you think it plays a bigger role than introducing culture, or do you think it makes a bigger role than contributing to this mainstream idea of all of us should look the same, or all of us should be one unit?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's a fine line, to be honest, and it's a really fine line. I can give you a perfect example. This was about 5-6 years ago. You may have heard of Russell Simmons. He used to run Def Jam, and he came out with a clothing line. I forgot the name now, but he decided to. He was big into yoga. He was a big yoga fan, and he decided to take the Om symbol, which is a Hindu symbol, and stick it on the arse of jeans. Now, obviously, for those who see that symbol as something sacred, they're like, you couldn't have picked a better place, surely. So there is a really fine line between whoring out, in the nicest way to say it, a culture. And I face that challenge every day because I want to represent my community. I want to present a narrative through design, but at the same time, I have to make sure I'm not doing it at the expense that it would cause offense. Now, I'm not talking about the super reserved people who basically take offense to a fly just going past their face, and how dare you do that? That was my air. But more to do with the people who I have a relation to. Like I said, I'm a baptized Sikh, I'm a Khalsa, so I'm very invested in making sure that my history is presented in a way that I'm not exploiting it at the same time. So I think, again, it comes down to having a good team around you. And if you're not from that background, try and speak to someone from that culture just so you can sort of get an idea of the do's and don'ts, or understanding, well, what impact would it have if I created this design on a t-shirt? What impact would it have if I chose to do this? Because I don't think we should all look the same. I think that's an individual choice. This room is a testament to that. We all have the ability to be different. That's what makes life fun, More importantly, it's about the acceptance part. And I think when you see someone, especially from outside of your culture, when you see someone then take your identity or take from a fashion point, they're like, I think in trend right now maybe like the Native American identity, and people are doing photo shoots with the headband and just the general outfit. Now some people are like, well, hey, it's fashion is expression. Yes, but do you know what? Millions of people have died to maintain that identity. So for you, it's just a good look that's going to go out of season in 2016. But for them, they're going to keep that identity. Like, beards are in fashion right now. Guess what? I'll beat you all to it. But eventually, this is not going to be in fashion. But for me, it doesn't make a difference. I'm never going to shave the hair on my face. It's part of my identity. So that balance, I think, comes from having a good team. If you're not from that cultural identical background, but you're inspired by it, I think find people who do belong to it and gauge and get an understanding. And then hopefully from there, you can find that balance of being able to create good fashion, but at the same time, respect the history of perhaps a community or a culture.